Hi and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make something I'm calling a gamer's notebook. It basically takes a cheap 3-ring binder that you can get at places like Dollar Tree and turn it into something that's a lot more than just that. It has a pouch to store your character sheets, as well as slots for your spell cards, and even paper so you can take notes while you're playing your game. So sit tight, I'm going to show you step by step how to go about making these. The other feature about this video is that I'm going to be doing a hangout in 2 days, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can join me live while I make another one of these covers. So if you have any further questions, you can always join me there, and I'll do my best to help answer those questions for you live. So here we go. I hope you enjoy it as always, and I'll see you later. Bye. Because of the number of different supplies, I did want to make sure you had some screenshots of what some of these supplies look like. So the first thing you're going to want to have on hand is something called Crafter's Foam. This is not like the Dollar Tree foam or the foam you're getting at Home Depot and Lowe's. This is actually a really great foam you can find at any craft store. I am, however, going to provide you a link down below so you can get the exact kind that I used in this video. Along with that, you want a very sharp pair of scissors. The next thing you want is a tapestry needle, and I've taken a picture again here so you can see the size that you're going to want, as well as something called doily thread. Now you can get this in any color you want. I decided to go with gold in this case. It comes in different colors like ivory, cream, blue, red, and I have seen greens and some other tones as well. Those you can find online at Joann Fabrics or at Michael's again. Another thing you're going to want for this is a cheap 3-ring binder from Dollar Tree, as well as some lined notebook paper. However, you could take the time and make some antique looking paper if you so choose. And you're also going to want those lovely little dividers that hold playing cards, because that's what's going to take care of holding your spell cards and information cards. The other thing you can add to this list are some really cool looking embossed stickers, which you can find in the scrapbook section of any craft store, as well as a Sharpie metallic marker. I decided to go with gold. You could use silver if you so choose. With the stickers, you're also going to want to print out some stylized Celtic knots if you want to add them as details, because I'm going to show you how to transfer these onto the foam as well. To round off your list of supplies, you are also going to want your hot glue gun, super glue, Scotch tape, rulers with cork backing because it's going to grip that foam a lot better, a cutting mat, a ballpoint pen, and a mechanical pencil. Let's get started with this process. I want you to first see the various size panels that you ultimately want to end up with for your foam. So you're going to want 2 panels that are 12 inches high by 11¼ inches wide, as well as 2 panels that are 12 inches high by 9½ inches wide. Then you're going to want 1 panel that is 6 inches high by 9½ inches wide. Then you're going to need a narrower panel that is 12 inches high by 1.5 inches wide. And finally, the last panel is 6 inches high by 2.5 inches wide. So it's these panels that you're going to use to create your notebook, but you first want to get these cut out to size. To do that, you definitely want to put this onto your cutting mat. Make sure you have that corked back ruler, and with your ballpoint pen, measure off where your lines need to be, and then just take that sharp pair of scissors and cut along those lines. The reason why I am not recommending an X-Acto knife is because this can tug and tear at this paper a lot more easily. Scissors are your safer bet. Once you get everything cut out and ready, it does help to keep these paired up in your different sections so you know which panel is which. The first set of panels you're going to work with are your 12 by 11¼ inch panels. And on the 12-inch side of things, you're going to mark off every ½ inch along the one panel so that you can see where these markings on. Then you are going to take your ruler, and at a ½ inch mark, you're going to run a line underneath, and this is going to basically create where you're going to create seam lines on these 2 panels when they get attached together. So as you can see here, I have them pressed together, the 2 panels along that 12-inch length of things. And then what you want to do is taking your tapestry needle where your hatch marks for your ½ inch guidelines started along with that longer line, you're going to poke your needle through both panels, and that's going to prep your panels for using the thread to attach them together. At this point, you are going to start using sewing techniques. So if you've never sewn before, I am going to do my best to walk you through this process. Now, when it comes to threading a needle, you have the option of pulling the length all the way through and down so that both ends meet at the bottom, so you have a double thread approach, which is what you're going to see in the video. However, if you're more experienced and you don't want as bulky of a thread look, you can just use it so you thread through one side and leave a tail by the needle's end, and then you have a tied off knot at the other end. But the first thing you want to make sure you do once you get the thread in the needle and the knot at the other end is run this through the top part of the two panels so that it goes through one side and underneath both panels and comes out on the opposite panel side to get things going. Now what you're going to see me do is put the needle through the space between the two bits of thread on the knot end side, and then just gently tug the thread so it becomes secure. You don't want to tug this tight. If it gets too tight, it will pull out the foam and possibly rip it. Then what you do is stick your needle through the hole that's below the initial start, and you're going to thread it through again. Now here's where you're going to start a ladder approach, but you're going to alternate. So now you take the needle and you're going to push it through the next hole, feed it underneath the two panels, and have it pop out on the other side. But what you notice is you have a vertical seam line starting to happen. So what's going to go on is you're going to see the vertical seam lines on this side and the horizontals on the other side. So again, move down, poke the needle through, pull out on the other side. Again, make sure your stitches are firm and secure but not pulled too taut. Otherwise it does cause the foam to buckle and it could cause some tearing around the holes. So you're going to keep going down using this process of alternating sides. There you have your vertical jumps, but on the opposite side you will have at each hole marking a horizontal seam line. So you have this really neat book binding effect on the other side. Now, if at any time you need to add more length of thread, what you want to make sure you do is have your knot on the vertical jump side of things, because that knot will be hidden once you put a panel on top of it. So you tie the pieces of thread together, and then you can proceed to go on with jumping down to the next hole, moving the thread underneath the two panels, and bringing it out the other side. That is the easiest way to add length on at this part of the process. Now, to fasten off, when you get to the end, what you're going to do is you're going to feed your needle underneath that last vertical jump, and you're basically going to knot it off at this section. Again, keep the thread secure, don't pull it too tightly, you don't want it to snag, but what you want to do is make a knot at this point. As you can see how I'm doing it here, I thread it under and then I push the needle back through, and it just creates a nice little knot there. And then what you do is one more additional knot just to make sure it is secure, and then you're going to jump up to the next vertical seam above and make an additional loop knot, and that way it's just going to make sure everything stays in place and doesn't shift around on you. It does help to thread it through just to kind of keep the slack from getting too out of hand. But this is how you're going to tie off the seam of the two front and back panels when you put them together. And then just snip off the excess thread and you'll be done. And as you can see, this is what it's going to look like on the other side with your horizontal seams. As I had mentioned, you are going to be covering up the vertical jump seams on the inside portion of your front and back panels. And to do this, you want that very long, narrow strip and your hot glue gun. You're first going to put hot glue on your narrow strip about halfway from the top down to the midpoint of the strip itself, and then apply the strip to the binded section of the two panels to hide your seams. Then what you want to do is, taking your hot glue, is you're going to put that on the lower portion where the panels are and cover that with hot glue, and then you're going to gently smooth out your narrow panel over those seam lines, and you get this nice finished off look when you are done with this part of the process. The next thing you're going to do is prep your interior panels, and in this case you're going to take your 12 by 9.5 inch along with your 6 by 9.5 inch. Now on the left hand side you're going to take one of the larger panels and put that 6-inch panel on top, and then on the right hand side you're going to just stick one of those 12 by 9.5 inch panels. You do want to make sure you go through and you do the 1/2 inch marking again, but instead of going down a 1/2 inch and using the ruler to mark off your line where you're going to poke through the needle, what you want to do is take one of those coffee stir sticks and use that as your mark so you have an easier way of marking where your stitches are going to go. You don't want these to go in as deeply as you did for your front and back panel seams. A little tip here to make things easier on you so they aren't shifting around a lot as you're manipulating these panels together. Put some Scotch tape between the panels. Make sure they're in an area where you can take them back out once they are attached. You don't want to sew this together into the piece, otherwise it's going to make for a sticky situation. To best mark off where you want your 1/2 inch marks, the first thing you want to be sure is with your 6 by 9.5 inch panel is that you only mark off your 1/2 inch marks along the 2 6-inch sides and then along one of the 9.5 inch sides. When it comes to the panel that's going to be placed behind this, that is the 9.5 by 12 inch panel, you want to make sure that you have the 9.5 inch sides both marked with a 1/2 inch spacing, as well as just one of the 12 inch side of things marked off with a 1/2 inch marks. This is so that you don't have unnecessary marks put into the foam once everything's done. The other thing is that you are going to start with your left hand side panels, so that's going to involve your 9.5 by 12 inch panel and the 6 by 9.5 inch panel, and you're going to do something called a blanket stitch, and I am going to have an instructional video following this, but you are going to start with the 1 6-inch side placed up against the 12-inch side of your panel, and you're going to work from the one side down across the bottom as you attach it to the front panel of the notebook cover and bring it up and around. So essentially it's going to be floating independent and free with the first two panels as you take care of that 1/2 inch length, or not the 1/2 inch length, the 6-inch length, and then when it comes time to working on the 9.5 inch side of things, you are then attaching it to the front cover of this piece. Now here you can see me attaching the thread to the 6-inch side and the 12-inch side of the inner panels. Again, you want to make sure your knot is hiding underneath the 12 by 9.5 inch panel. Then what you're going to do is start working through where you have your holes already marked, again like you did with the front and back panels. And with the blanket stitch, what you do is you insert the needle, and as it comes out you're going to loop it under the loop that's created and kind of catching it, so it creates this little hiccup of a catch. So again, you're going to see a little bit better here. You push the needle through. Before you pull it all the way through, you loop it around the needle and then you pull up, and that creates a sort of pseudo knot and gets the blanket stitch started. So again, put your needle through, bring the loop of thread over it and pull through, and you can see it catches that loop. And you're going to do this all the way down the length of the panels that are going on the left hand side. And you want to make sure that these are secured first before you move them onto the front panel section and attach all 3 panels together. And one thing I will do is I'll sometimes reverse how the blanket stitch is caught, just to keep the thread from shifting around too much. So instead of having the loop go over, I'll take the needle and put it under instead. That's a completely optional step. You can just keep it going with the push the needle through, bring the loop over, and pull the needle up technique. And you want to make sure you do this down the entire side. And when you get to that corner point, you are going to put in a few extra stitches just to make sure everything is secured in that corner. And you'll still do the blanket stitch technique as you move down and along that first edge. Then make sure you knot at the corner before moving on. When you have the 2 panels secured, what you're then going to do is place this left-hand panel on top of the front and back covers that have just been joined together. And you're going to continue that blanket stitch technique as you move along the 9.5 inch edge, which is basically combining the now 3 panels together. And you're going to move up along the 12-inch edge, again, combining all 3 panels together. And then you're going to move up and across the other 9.5 inch edge, which now you're shifting over to the 2 panels. You will keep that blanket stitch detail going along the front and the back panels so that it carries through on the front side, and you're going to move it across the midline where you had your first seams put in. And as you move over to the right hand side, you want to make sure that you put your other panel on top. Again, this is where it's handy to have those Scotch tape loops put underneath, because what you can do is take your panel, line it up corner to corner and edge to edge, and get everything set up before you start stitching things together again. But once you have your right hand panel in place on top of the back cover, you'll continue with that blanket stitch, moving it across the top, securing it in the corners, moving it down the side edge, and then moving it along the bottom part of the panel. And again, you're going to move that stitch across the very bottom where you have your two panels of the front and the back secured together already. And basically, when it comes time to adding on lengths of more thread, you are always going to hide it underneath the panel sections on the inside pockets rather than anywhere on the outside. That is the best way to mask and hide your additional length of thread. You can always carefully go back under and trim it down a little bit if you have some excess length of threading from tying the two knots together. But this is basically how you go around attaching everything together using the blanket stitch. You do want to be sure that when you bring that final stitch under and around the bottom part, that you use your corner stitch areas to loop it through and close everything off and have a nice knot hidden just underneath that bottom part of your left hand side panels. The last thing you're going to do is take your hot glue gun and that smallest panel, and along the 2 6-inch sides as well as the narrower 2 to 3-inch side, you're going to put some hot glue around and attach it so you're creating a pocket on your right hand side inner panel. Here's where you're going to insert that binder from Dollar Tree and see it slides right in there. Do make sure you double check your measurements so that in case you've gotten a different style binder, it will insert itself nicely. So you might have to adjust your length measurements here a little bit, but for now, using that Dollar Tree 3-ring binder, that's a nice cheap bendable plastic, you insert it inside, and as you can see, it completely transforms the overall look. You could feasibly at this point just stop here and leave it as is, so you just have what looks like sort of a suede leather cover to your 3-ring binder from Dollar Tree. However, I wanted to embellish this a little bit more, so what I did is I first went and I found some Celtic knots that I liked the look of. I found some that work well for corners, as well as one that's sort of a medallion look. If you want a really good source for finding some great Celtic knots, I do highly recommend you check out pixabay.com. That's a really great resource to find some really cool patterns and Celtic knot styles. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to take the medallion style and put it into what I decided was the pouch pocket that's on the left hand inside cover. And so what you want to do is you're going to first take your mechanical pencil and you're going to perforate the Celtic knot lines onto the foam, and you don't want to push in too hard. You don't want to poke this through very far, but just gently push it so you're creating indentations on the foam. And then what's going to happen is it's going to allow you to start playing connect the dots with your gold metallic Sharpie or whatever metallic color Sharpie you decided to use. And as you connect your dots, it does help to have that medallion nearby so you can just go back and reference it to make sure you're marking off the right sections. I decided to work from the inside out. It was just a little bit easier to do. But again, this is going to decide how you want to approach it depending on the style knot that you use. So what you want to do is take that Sharpie and mark off your dots so that you're going to start seeing that knot take shape for you on that interior cover. And again, this is truly optional. I like the way this ends up looking. It gives the cover a little bit more interest and it makes it look a little bit more expensive if you want to go that way. But it's not something I'd say to skip, but you could if you wanted to. But as you can see, here we go, and we have the knot taking shape, and that's all just from going around and putting in those little perforation marks. Here I'm showing you the corner knots that I found, and it's the same concept as what we just did with the medallion. You place it in the corner, you go through with your mechanical pencil, and you just push it down enough so you're making some slight marks onto the foam. Don't push it too hard, you don't want it to pop all the way through, but this will give you enough of a guide so you can keep playing connect the dots. You can wiggle your pencil around just a little bit to make it a little bit more obvious for you, but then you go through, again, keeping that knot nearby as a reference. Take your marker and mark off your lines so you can get that pattern to show through. And that's how I did the corner elements to this. And as you can see, it dresses up your corners, and you want to make sure you hit all 4 of your corners when you're done. Now, for the extra embellishments, I found some really neat medallion stickers in the scrapbook section of a craft store. Really, this is completely up to you what style you want to get, what kind you want to use. The most important thing is that if you are going to add a medallion to your front panel is that you make sure you measure off where your center line point is. Once you get that figured out, you can add on additional embellishments. Really just be creative with this point of the process. It's completely up to you to personalize it, add on what you want to, keep off what you don't want to put on there. But basically these are all items from either the scrapbooking section, and I did actually find some nice flatter beads in the jewelry section that I put to use. And with those, you do want to make sure you're attaching them with super glue. Hot glue will not work in this case with the bits of jewelry beads. And here we have our final look. Now, as you can see on the left-hand side, you can easily tuck in your character sheet. And then on the right-hand side, I have the notebook paper, and on top of that, I've put those spell card dividers, as well as the item cards that we will get when we're playing our game. I find this is a really helpful way to keep everything organized. The kids are really excited about these. It helps them kind of stay focused and know which spells they're using, what they have on hand in their supplies, and be able to check their sheets a lot faster. And when the game is done, you just close everything up. And I also like having that little pouch on the right-hand side to stick either a pen or a pencil to keep that handy so you can take notes, and that way you're not searching for everything when it comes time to game time. So this is how I pulled this whole piece together. I hope you've enjoyed this process. I know this is a much longer video than I've normally been doing, but it's a more intensive project. Again, any questions, please feel free to email me at thecraftingmuse.email@gmail.com, or you can comment down below. If you've liked this video, please make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for your time today, and make sure you stay tuned for a special announcement. Before you go, I want to share some exciting news with you. A little while back, Wylock approached me about being a player in an online game that he is going to be DMing. And I'm going to be there along with a few other great YouTube creators. So if you take a look over here, you can see everyone who's going to be involved, as well as the day and the time. And this is all going to be happening over on Wylock's channel, and I'll make sure his link is down below in the description as well. So if you want to watch an online game with myself and a few other great players, make sure to stop by and check us out May 8th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wylock's channel, and see us start off the new game called Seekers of Saloon. So I'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk with you later, I guess. Bye.
I could be wrong, but I think there's something wrong with my camera settings. Maybe. Or maybe I'll just film like this from now on. That's actually pretty